I don't know if cancer ever will be cured, but we can control it in a way that quality of life is maintained for most people. I consider the folks that do clinical trials to be the Mercury astronauts of cancer treatment, that they boldly go and are willing to take that risk. And it's not so much a risk anymore. Your best treatment you're going to receive is to participate in a clinical trial. Get the help you need, and it's out there.
Cancer is just something that we all have to recognize, acknowledge, cope with, live with, struggle with, rage upon, crush, and even thrive with. This show is more than knowing and fighting or beating cancer. It's more than just relaying science, hope, and technology. Together, our purpose is to demystify cancer, take away as much fear out of the diagnosis, treatment, and process as we can, defeat its grip on our lives. This is The Cancering Show. Welcome to The Cancering Show. I am so excited for you to meet this guest today. Mr. Fred Neubauer is a 5-year survivor of stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma. That is commonly called bile duct cancer. It's an incredibly rare cancer, and you're going to learn a little bit about it today. But his story is amazing in so many ways, not just those numbers, but also that this is a man who worked in sales in the paper industry his whole career and found himself with a cancer diagnosis nearing retirement and became an expert in his cancer. Now works with the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation nationally and internationally as a patient advocate and a mentor. I think you have so much to learn from Mr. Neubauer, and I can't wait for you to meet him. Fred, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. It's something I haven't done before.
Well, we are super excited to bring your story to our listeners. Let's really start from the beginning. Tell us about your diagnosis and kind of how you learned as much as you know now about your cancer.
I went in to have a CAT scan done because I had a kidney stone. I had no idea I had my cancer. And they let me know that the kidney stone has passed, and if you've ever had one, you know when they're out.
Yeah.
And but they said you need to go to a hepatologist because you have a large mass on your liver. That got the ball rolling for my journey that I'm on. Okay.
And then from there, it seems like it was a pretty rapid.
Fortunately, yes, because this cancer, bile duct cancer, which starts in the bile duct, which is part of the drainage system, for lack of a better term, in the liver, it's very hard to diagnose. And when I was diagnosed by initially Dr. Henderson, who is a hepatologist at USA. Excellent guy. He told me right away what it probably is. Well, we confirmed it with Dr. Mahmoud Cushman at the time with biopsy work. And I was informed, and people will appreciate size based on imaging rather than centimeters. I had 3 tumors the size of 3 Titleist golf balls. That wasn't the concerning one. The concerning one was the tumor that was encroaching upon my hepatic vein and also my bile duct, which was the size of 4 sticks of butter.
Wow.
Huge.
Yeah. And that really is a scary moment when you realize it's that big.
Absolutely, because it's like if you go on Google, which I don't recommend anybody do because it's a lie, the particularly stage 4, it's hopeless. It is not hopeless, and I can attest to that.
And that's why we are so interested to get your story to our listeners. Walk us through kind of what you were told and your experience.
Well, when I first was diagnosed and discussed with Dr. Cushman, he pretty much said this is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And a very positive guy. He said this is not. You'd be surprised how uncommunicative some oncologists are, but he was very encouraged. He when they did the biopsy, South sent off my portion of my biopsy for biomarker testing, and that has opened up the door to treatments that are just rapidly coming. We live at an age when the threat of cancer is not as scary as it was, just mainly because of the new technology coming out.
Right.
So I did a year of chemo till basically my platelet level couldn't handle it anymore. My cancer is very rare. There's only 8,000 people diagnosed a year. If you do the math, that's 0.6% of all cancer patients diagnosed in the U.S.
Wow.
It's absolutely minuscule. Mm-hmm. And if you look further in Alabama, southern Alabama, there's maybe 4 or 5 at the most of us diagnosed a year.
Wow.
So I did have to finally go to subject matter experts that see this on a daily basis. And I was my large tumor was destroyed with external targeted beam radiation after chemo ran its course. And about a month after that, I'm fortunate to have a biomarker, a mutation, that 2 FDA-approved drugs have come out in the last 3.5 years. I was on one of them, which is called Pemazir, for a year and a half. It kept the big Titleist golf balls at bay. They didn't grow.
Okay.
And finally, though, the cancer figures out, you're messing with me. I went on to futibatinib, which is also referred to as Litgobi, the brand name.
Okay.
And within the first 2 months, my tumors, my Titleist golf balls began to shrink to the point where they were the size of a gumball. And I had all 3 back in November microwave ablated, which they stick a wire in basically and burn from the center out and the margins that cancer. So it's basically, I'm still on the Litgobi. My cancer in my liver is eradicated. Right now, it is what we would refer to as NED, not detectable.
Yes.
However, I'm stage 4, and it's in my L3 vertebrae, 2 ribs, a little spot in my hip. They think maybe in my lungs, but it could be, the tissue in the lungs just encapsulating, for lack of a better term, stuff I've inhaled over the years. I'm 70, soon to be 70, by the way.
So you've mentioned a lot of things, and I want to go back over some of them. First, we've talked a lot to our listeners about this biomarker testing and how it can help patients with rare cancers or who have passed through the current, what's considered standard of care. So I think your story is really hopeful in that sense.
Absolutely. I mean, technically, when I was first diagnosed, realistically, 4 to 6 months.
Wow.
And it's scary, but I got a strange personality. My wife will attest. It didn't scare me. I'm the kind of guy that wants to know the technology, what's out there, and let's get going.
Yeah.
My glass is always more than half full. My cup runneth over, if you will.
There are some people who even say that choice of outlook plays into your survival.
Believe that 110%. If you lay back and let them dictate what you're doing, particularly stage 4 cancer patients out there, you got to insist on biomarker testing, and you brought that up. If you are not aware of any mutations that you have, you're leaving the opportunity for treatment. That door is closed quickly because you just have chemo, and most stage 4 don't have the opportunity to do any kind of resection where they remove portion or transplant. So that's where I'm at. I'm kicking the cancer can down the road with technology, and my quality of life is great.
Yeah. The other thing that you talked about, that we talk about with our patients, is what we call multimodal therapy. That, it's not always just chemo, but sometimes it is a combination of chemotherapy, some type of radiation. You talked about the microwave ablation that we do specifically to liver tumors. You've had some targeted therapies that target specific mutations. And we talk a lot about the fact that our success is not relying on any one thing to be the silver bullet.
Dr. Pierce, I couldn't agree more. When you're stage 4, we're in a boxing match, and every new treatment's another couple rounds of getting punched, and you've got to fight back and utilize all the tools. I have told my oncologists, when I get a tumor to the size where we can eradicate it, whether it's radiation or ablation, full speed ahead, let's do it. We don't want that thing to linger around. I don't want to play whack-a-mole my whole life. I want to destroy all the big stuff and then start working on the others. So you've got chemo. You've got targeted therapy. Then you get things shrunk to the size where you can have ablation, One of the new things out there, which the medical field's learning about now, is histotripsy, where they actually use sound waves to destroy just the cancer cell. University of Michigan developed this, and there's only 11 cancer centers in the United States that have it.
This is the first we are mentioning it on the podcast. We're going to have to get an expert in here.
Oh, this absolutely, because in a nutshell, what it does is they use two CAT scans to triangulate and see a 3D image of the tumor.
Yeah.
And it is truly amazing. They on a computer screen, the oncologist takes, or IR oncologist, the interventional radiologist, someone qualified and trained, takes a little wand and just erases it. It's like using the electronic eraser and just moves it around. And the bubbles between your interstitial fluid that's in between your cells has gas in it. It excites the gas, and that gas foams and gyrates all around and destroys the cell wall. Two benefits. Number one, it's painless. They do put you under anesthesia, but when you come out, you're like, when are you going to perform this?
Right.
Done. Go home.
I love it.
The other thing is the interstitial fluid, where all your DNA is, goes into the bloodstream. And the theory is, and it's new, that the mutations that are being released, your own antibody, your own immune system develops antibodies to target that. It's new, and it's going to be like a rocket.
Yeah, I think there's so much to be hopeful about there. We know so much about the immune system being an important component of killing cancer cells, and kind of like you said about the lung, that the cancer can encapsulate and hide from the immune system. So anything that breaks it up and then shows those antigens to your immune system is going to be more successful.
Yeah. Fortunately for our liver, the first organ that they're actually doing the research on is the liver. And I know some patients that have already had histotripsy performed.
And you have not, is that correct?
Have not, but...
haven't needed it?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But if I get a tumor large enough and it's approved for that, for sure the liver, I would not hesitate. And that's something I want to really expound on is clinical trials. You're going to find out about when you get your biomarkers determined. A lot of the biomarkers for your particular cancer are wide open, and all the research is being done for that, from an immuno treatment to just targeted therapy that's specific for that cancer.
And I think, as you were mentioning, there are some clinical trials that enrollment is based on the biomarker, not the tumor. And I think that brings a lot of hope to patients with rare cancers and stage 4 cancers.
Exactly. I'm already a product of that research that's been done with patients brave enough. I think we discussed about, I consider the folks that do clinical trials to be the Mercury astronauts of cancer treatment, that they boldly go and are willing to take that risk. And it's not so much a risk anymore. Your best treatment you're going to receive is to participate in a clinical trial.
I could not agree more. It's so true. It's really the forefront of where the best research has to go. And for most clinical trials in cancer, we are doing standard of care plus. And it is only after those standard of care treatments have been exhausted that there really is, this is just as good as the next, third line thing, that it's worth doing something that is different from standard of care.
Right. And you can participate in a case study for a new drug and still fall back on existing FDA approved, if there's a targeted therapy out there already, you can be on the new stuff. And if for some reason it's not working, you have the opportunity to go on all the current existing release FDA approved drugs.
Absolutely. And I think that, as you said, for a lot of patients, there's concerns about safety. I think they do such a beautiful job of following so closely, monitoring so carefully for safety, at times seeing you multiple hours over the same day to watch your treatment evolve in your body, and seeing you, at least once a week, if not multiple times a week. If
you talk to anybody that has been involved in a clinical trial, they'll confirm that you are getting the best of possible care. You're under the microscope, whether it's blood work or What side effects are are you seeing on it, which are side effects, and also just the scanning. They monitor you like a hawk, and that's you are well treated. And some of the clinical studies now, even the folks that are performing them, will help if people are concerned about it. They pay for travel and lodging and meals, etc., during your travel time. So
yeah. I think especially if there's travel specifically for the trial, they want to make sure it's not too burdensome. But there are extra stuff that goes with a trial. We talked about just the time commitment alone. What advice would you have for a patient who was looking into a trial or trying to decide between a trial? It's so hard.
Well, number one, where are they? It's hard to find a clinical trial suited for you, and I think I've got a program that's out in the web that was developed by one of our cholangio patients. It's called Genomic Focus, and if you take your biomarkers to that website and provide them with the biomarkers, you are updated monthly on specific biomarkers that offer clinical trials for your cancer. And it was originally set up for just cholangio patients. That's not the case anymore. No charge, any cancer they'll accept. They sift through all the NIH and all the governmental info and put it in a form that you have easy access to on a monthly basis.
That's amazing. We'll make sure to get that up on our website and on the show notes so our patients can find that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, I think that's so helpful. Just for those of you listening, if you're wondering kind of where do you get that information about your biomarkers, most cancer doctors and most cancer patients are getting those reports. If your doctor ever gave you a report that's maybe 5, 6, 7 pages long and has a list of genes with lots of letters, it says negative or positive, it might be that. If you're looking for titles on those reports, it might be a Foundation One report. It might be a Caris report. There's several companies out there that offer these. And so that's what you're looking for. But also, of course, we always encourage you to talk to your doctor.
Yeah. And when I was first diagnosed, the biopsy came back, and my oncologist here at Mitchell Cancer Center came in, "You've won the lottery." And I said, "Why?" He says, "You have the FGFR2 fusion mutation, which just so happens that the two initial drugs, or the drugs I referred to, were in the process of being FDA approved. So those were in my quiver, ready to be shot as soon as the chemo wore off." So I didn't realize at the time what that meant. And that's one thing I got to give a shout out to Mitchell Cancer Center, is that they are very proactive early on to send the biopsies off for the genetic mutation markers.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been doing that standard of care for a while now, and it makes a huge difference in survivorship based on, what we knew then versus what we do now.
Absolutely. And I can tell you just from our foundation has group chats bi-monthly, and there's a lot of new patients that had no idea if they've had biomarker testing or not. In a lot of cases, their oncologist hasn't recommended it yet. And that's right. From a scientific standpoint, I think you'd agree that's not right. I mean, it ought to be provided to everybody immediately so they can jump on the bandwagon for treatment.
Right. Well, you've talked a lot about, we know this is a rare cancer. There's not that many people in Lower Alabama who are experiencing this, and yet you've found your community, and it seems like it's meant a lot to you in terms of knowledge as well as support. Talk a little bit about that to our listeners.
Yeah, a little over 15 years ago, Stacy Lindsay, who was a sister of a cholangio patient who passed about a year later, while he was suffering, they said, "We've got to do something about this. It's little known, 8,000 patients," and she started the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. And it's a godsend. It really is. The information that's available, and I recommend anybody to go to on YouTube and just type in biomarkers matter. And the YouTube's going to come up. It's a cartoon and easily explains what a biomarker is. That was developed by the foundation. And our community is extremely tight-knit because we're so small. And there's some advantages to being small. It's like big government, small government. I want something local. You know what I mean? And
right.
we have a super tight knit. Last 3 years, I've gone to the annual conference in Salt Lake. We have oncologists from all over the world that are devoted their lives to cholangiocarcinoma. It just blows you away at what's coming out.
Yeah, and to have access to them and to be able, as a patient, to contribute to that science, I'm sure is
it's
very
so
rewarding.
meaningful. It is, yes, absolutely.
And part of the work that you've done there is mentoring other patients. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that we're very strict about it. We go through background checks, and I don't know how I passed, but I did. But yeah, new patients are overwhelmed with this cancer because there's so little. It's getting a lot better through the foundation, but they will request having a mentor. And right now I've got about 10. And I don't mind saying I've probably lost 4 in the past year, 2 of them in the last month and a half. And that hurts
hard.
Me personally. And we're there to give them hope. I can tell them I'm going into my 5th year of stage 4 intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And I'm here, and you can tell I'm walking, talking, physically active,
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do is instill hope and direct them for the proper treatment, particularly from the standpoint of oncologists. I don't mind saying that I and the oncological team here at South is learning from the expertise that's out there. They communicate with oncologists are great. They will communicate and transmit learning knowledge to anybody who will accept it. And not only do we have patients, but oncologists that are on our team. So,
I love that. Well, I know it makes such a difference to be able to get to people because their oncologists might not know that there's a foundation, might not know that there's the latest drug. And as oncologists, we are always so glad to have a mentor or a strong foundation or support group on the team to help those patients who have rare cancers and need that additional support.
It's funny you bring that up. I go to Mitchell once a month for my bone cancer. I get a shot of Xgeva, which is, think of it as a concrete to help kind of keep things contained, for lack of a better term.
I like that.
And they could do blood work, and I'll see Dr. Abdallah, who's my oncologist here, and he or physician's assistant Jamie or Jazz, the nurse, who I love them all to death. When either Jamie or Dr. Abdallah come in, I ask the first question. I say, "Do you have any new patients?" Because it's critical that as a patient, I reach out to them to get the ball rolling. Because, let's face it, I consider myself fortunate to be educated and very, very attuned to what needs to be done for me, and I want to see folks that aren't as fortunate to be provided the same kind of access through the foundation as I've been lucky enough to.
And this year you brought things a little more local with our local awareness.
I'd like to take credit for that.
You should.
Well, I tell you, Carrie McNair, who is a research advocate at the Mitchell Cancer Center, her aunt passed from cholangio in the last couple of years. I tried 2 years ago to get a proclamation for the city and failed, and also contacted the RSA folks. February is cholangiocarcinoma month. Well, Carrie took it upon herself to ramrod both the city council and also RSA. The city council proclaimed February cholangiocarcinoma day. I was fortunate enough to be invited to speak as a patient by the Mitchell folks, and I thank them for that. But during Mardi Gras, normally I think the 15th of February is, quote, the official day to light everything green. Well, Mardi Gras has gone on. So later on, a week after, Mobile was lit green. I don't know if anybody noticed it, but my wife and I celebrated. Yeah, and that's very touching that the city's taken it upon themselves to recognize an insignificant cancer. When you look at the big picture, 8,000 people a year. That's in the U.S. That's
I know, but yet I think the point is there's no insignificant cancer, and to be seen, that people see
right
that it's there.
So just a shout out to the the folks at the Cancer Center I wish I could have been as effective, but they ramrodded it through. And as a patient, and trust me, that got broadcasted all over the globe too, because the foundations posted.
Good.
Posted
Excellent.
Mobile lights it green. So
I love it.
yeah.
Well, Carrie, thank you for that. I was on the phone with her before I came here. She continues to do hard work for us in lots of different cancers. So there's a couple of resources that, in addition to the Genomic Focus website, that you really wanted to make sure cancer patients have that opportunity, not just cholangiocarcinoma patients. Tell us about those.
Yeah. First of all, the biomarkers matter. Go to that. It'll explain things. It's a cartoon, folks. I love cartoons. It's very simple. And it explains why they're important and what happens once you are identified to handle your cancer. That's one. And just go to Biomarkers Matter on YouTube or Google, and it's going to pop up the cartoon. The other one is a group called Citizen, and that is CIITIZEN.com. And that is an organization that initially was set up strictly for cholangio patients. One of the billionaire San Francisco high-tech guys started it in honor of his sister. And they initially just took cholangio patients' medical records. You turn over your sign-off on your medical records, including blood work, physician's write-ups, and all your scans, and you tell them that Mitchell Cancer Center, I just had my new scan done. You get online, and they go through the process. You don't have to do anything.
Nice.
So all my historical records are in the cloud. It's important for several things. Number one, you have quick access to them.
Right.
As you can tell, I'm ADHD. If you made me responsible for getting at my files, it wouldn't happen. They'd be scattered everywhere. Family members have access to it. You have hierarchies of if there's something personal you don't want them to know.
Sure.
I'm an open book. I don't care. And then also you allow your physicians or access to it. So if you're at another hospital and have work done, they have access to the results. But more importantly, for second and third opinions, and any good oncologist is going to recommend that you go for second and third opinions. You don't have to travel to them. You just give them access to Citizen, and they can get your records, look at all your imaging and all your treatment. So that is provided at no charge.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, no, and that's something we've been trying to advocate for every patient. You know, you have your heart doctor in one institution and your lung doctor at a different. To be able to put all your health records together is so important. Absolutely,
and the Foundation for Cholangio Patients, we give them access for researchers to use all the information for the cholangio patients globally. I mean, they can drop into that for statistical analyses and who's on what drug and the response. It's, knowledge is valuable.
Yeah.
Knowledge is a value to solving. I don't know if cancer ever will be cured, but we can control it in a way that quality of life is maintained for most people. And researchers all over the globe have access to this if you allow it.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, you don't have to.
Yeah. To finish, I love that concept. The goal is not necessarily cure for all of these diseases. It is control. And somebody said that a cure of cancer is that you die of something else, that you live out your natural life, even if that is with cancer cells on board.
Hey, my father died of prostate cancer. I always said I was going to get prostate cancer. Guess what? I have prostate cancer now. And you know what? In the big picture, who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah.
And, if I can die of something else and keep kicking the can down the road and doing what I'm doing, I'm happy.
That's right.
And that's what I like to instill in all the patients out there that don't get the help you need, and it's out there.
What's next for you? Well,
funny you should ask. I've got 3 grandkids, maybe more. And that's what I'm living for. I work very hard with the foundation as both a research advocate, patient advocate, and then also the Cholangio Connect, which is my patients that I have that I mentor. Mm-hmm. And in addition, I'm a DIYer. I tore out our staircase and redid that while I was on chemo, and put in a hardwood floor upstairs, 4 bedrooms and a hall. So I stay active with hobbies, and I'm working on with my buddy Max restoring a 1968 Triumph Spitfire, and it's
Amazing.
in pieces right now, but we'll get that thing done. And in addition, my wife's birthday is coming up. She was born on Mother's Day, and the family's going to get together to celebrate both her birthday and Mother's Day. And she's the love of my life. We've been married 42 years now, which she's amazed I got that right because I'm bad with numbers. And she is my advocate and my caregiver.
It's so important to have somebody like that on your side.
Absolutely. I couldn't get by without her, particularly being ADHD. She picks up after me.
And if our listeners wanted to make contact with you, where could they find you?
I tell you what, maybe you can post it on it, but probably the easiest way to do it is at Fred, F-R-E-D, N-E-U-B, Fred Noob. My full name is Neubauer, at bellsouth.net. I'm old school. I haven't changed my email address since they first invented them, right after Pony Express.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mr. Neubauer, for being here. Fred, you are always a friend of MCI and a friend of our podcast. We hope we see you again.
Oh, I'd love to come back and, in 5 years and tell you what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I'll have a lot of questions.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What an amazing show with Mr. Fred Neubauer. He is an incredible inspiration. He inspired me. As you can tell, he is a man who didn't know anything about cancer until he got cancer, and he is now an expert in his cancer. He's clearly a member of his medical team and has done a lot of research to find the resources and the opportunities available to him. I think it just goes to show you, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, given 6 months to live 5 years ago. And here we are having a conversation with him before he flies out to Salt Lake City to go speak at another conference. So I just hope you are as inspired by his story as I am, as filled with energy and hope. I hope you look up those resources and see how they can help you or your family in your cancering journey. So I look forward to coming back to you next week with more stories filled with hope and technology and how we are bringing these to you on the Cancering Show. Until then, take care and keep cancering. Thanks again for listening. And don't forget to submit your questions at www.cancering.com. We're here for all of those questions and we'll get you the answers. This show is brought to you by the University of South Alabama Mitchell Cancer Institute. MCI is a cutting-edge cancer research and patient center built to fight cancer smarter in Mobile and Baldwin County, Alabama. Our researchers and clinicians focus daily on the struggle against cancer, serving a potential catchment population of more than 4.1 million people, with a singular focus of advancing cancer diagnosis, treatment, and prevention throughout the Gulf Coast and beyond, with science, technology, and hope. Want to know more about the Mitchell Cancer Institute? Visit us at usamci.com or search for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Mitchell Cancer Institute is a member of USA Health. To learn more about all of our hospitals, clinics, and services, visit usahealthsystem.com.